Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Today's guest is a dear friend of mine. He's a retired Naval SEAL commander with 22 years of experience, including 7 deployments in the Middle East, extensive global experience, and high-stakes conflict resolution. He has developed and teaches combat leadership curriculums and combat ethics for the Naval Special Warfare and Naval JAG communities. Today, he's guiding Navy SEALs in their transition from military service to impactful civilian careers. Please welcome the CEO of Beyond the Brotherhood, Jimmy May. Welcome, Jimmy.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Greg. Appreciate it.
It's an honor to have you on our show. We love talking about endurance and the endurance mindset. And Jimmy, I have to ask you, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
Well, I don't really know how I developed it other than being, the only white kid in El Paso and getting picked on as a young guy. And I think the first thing that pops into my mind is getting in a fight with this guy who was older than me when I was in 3rd grade. And I remember he was in 6th grade. He came over and he was playing football real rough with us. And I remember I just had enough and I said something to him. And so he beat me up. And there wasn't much I could do, So I got up and after he beat me up, I was laying there. I ran up and he beat me up again. And so the 3rd time I got up and I ran at him, he just turned around and ran and said, "What's wrong with you? Leave me alone." He ran off. And I was all bloody and beaten up. I probably didn't even punch him one time, but I just remember my friends looking at me different after that. Like, what is wrong with that kid? And I think that was the beginning of a little spark that I saw in myself where I'm like, there's something a little bit off about me, but maybe there's some usefulness in it.
That's an amazing story. What do you think ties into that? Like, where did that spark come that I'm fed up with this? If you really scratch down deep, where do you think that came from?
I just think I just got so frustrated with him because he was like pushing us around and throwing us in the street. And finally I just was like, I've had enough. And I stood up and I remember it felt good on the backside to do it, but during it didn't feel great because I was getting beat up.
And was it the two of you, or were the other friends sitting around watching?
Yeah, they watched. We were all in 3rd grade. He was in 6th grade. I still remember his name too. His name was Teddy. I'm not gonna say his last name, but I still remember it to this day. I'm 47 years old now. Yeah, I still remember his name. I don't have a death wish out for him. He gave me a gift that I kept with me for the rest of my life that I think has probably made me successful. So thank you.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, 100%. It's amazing how those situations in life can turn around at some point and actually be a lesson and a guiding principle. And you kind of go back and you say, thank you for those tougher times.
Well, so many things in life are like that. And, I think my bro Jocko says it best when he says good, like things going wrong and like, this is terrible. Good. You're going to do better next time. It's such an awesome message. And I think I knew him before he was who he is now. And he's the same person, by the way. And he used to always say that kind of stuff to us. And I remember it really made sense because it, takes a wrong turn. You can sit there and wallow in it, or you can figure out what the silver lining is, learn from it, don't do it again. It's just such a magical outlook on life. And I think that's something that stuck with me. And then I remember when he made that video that went viral, I was like, oh, that's just Jocko 101,
Yeah, and we'll attach that video to our podcast notes for sure. Jimmy, just jumping back to that 3rd grade incident, how have you seen that come back in other parts of your life where it's just fed up or you just keep going, that you play out that endurance mindset?
Well, when I went to, I felt like I almost needed that kind of being pushed in something hard. I felt like I need something worth my time. And so I've been like that for a long time. And I know when I had finished high school, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went into the Navy. Honestly, I thought the Navy was ridiculous. They were yelling at me about folding my clothes, and I did real well. It wasn't hard. So I did well, but it just wasn't that. I was looking for something harder. And then I ended up getting a scholarship to go to college. I'm like, oh, college is going to be hard. I'm not super academically gifted. I went into college. I never went to class. I had a 3.6 GPA. I was like, this is stupid. And so one day I was like, I got to go back to the Navy because the Navy's paying for my college. And my uncle, who was in the Navy, was like, I was like, hey man, is there anything hard out there? I feel like everything is just dumb. I went to college. I thought it was going to be hard. It's not hard. The Navy was not hard. Like, is there anything hard? And he goes, the SEALs are hard, but you shouldn't do it. Like, why? He goes, well, you won't make it. Like, why? He goes, nobody makes it. I'm like, oh. So that's what I was looking for. It drove me to look for something that was really challenging. And I remember I trained for a few years before I went there, and it was so worth it. I mean, I put my whole heart and soul into my career in the teams. I could try as hard as I wanted to. And it's like, you were never going to reach that pinnacle of what you needed to do. There was always a contingency left unplanned for. There was always somebody stronger or better. And you were just always driving. And it really kind of manifested itself in my life. And now, like when I take cognitive tests, because they do cognitive tests on us because of all the traumatic brain injury that our guys have, including me. And, I test on regular tasks, but on hard tasks, I test out really well. And I think that there's just something about that drive and looking for a real challenge that is worth my time. I kind of feel that way all the time.
That's fantastic. And it's such a inspiration in hearing you talk about it. You left me a little breadcrumb there talking about training and the couple of years of training you did before you actually tried to make the SEAL team. Was that training intentional for buds, I guess?
Well, so the training itself was intentional, but the way I got into it was I was in the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M, so I didn't know about ROTC or anything. I just went to Texas A&M, and I went there, and only like 10% of the people from the Corps of Cadets actually go to the military. So the rest of them, it's like this big frat kind of, and back then they used to do a lot of hazing, and I just wasn't having it. I got in fights with my upperclassmen. I'm like, I just didn't feel like being hazed. And I remember there was this group, and they got up super early. They got up earlier than everybody else. And instead of getting up and running around, getting yelled at and putting on uniforms, they got up and they worked out super, super hard. And these guys wanted to be Navy SEALs. And I'm like, these are my kind of people. Then they showed up late to the chow hall. And instead of having to play all these games with your food and instead of eating nutritious food in the regular Corps Cadets, you had to the upperclassmen talking, you had to spit your food out. And it was just a game. And I'm like, I don't want to play these games. And so they would show up late after all of the formations and standing at attention is all done. They just run in there, get their food, and go to class. And I'm like, these are my people, man. Get up in the morning, work out super hard. And then as I got to know those guys, very small group, like 11 or 12 usually, I just found out it was the right community for me. And then when I fell in, that kind of guided me towards the whole SEAL team thing.
And I had a leading question for that I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. And, I do Ironman triathlon, and every season I pick up an injury during training. And most recently it's been like this little calf thing that I finally got through and I'm back on track. And thanks to my coach for that. But I've been wondering, you and your team, when you're out, you're deployed, you're out on a mission, how do you handle sort of muscle injuries and those types of things? Is it a grin and bear it and you just kind of fight through the pain? Like let's say you've got a calf challenge, or is it, hey, gents, I got to take one, give me a sense of what that's like. Cause it's different obviously from me with a silly endurance race compared to, putting your life on the line with your mates.
Well, first of all, it's a young man's game. Like I'm 47 now.
True. Fair enough.
You know what I mean? And when you're young, you bounce back. It's just the truth. Like the guys that get through buds, you can get a waiver to go through buds above the age of 28. But when we were there, we gave 9 waivers. 0 guys made it. I mean, it's just your body just doesn't regenerate like it used to. When you're actually working and you're in the teams, you just got to go. For one example, when I was on my second deployment in Ramadi, we ended up, I tore my ankle really bad. Like I still have ligament damage in it, but I had to go. I was the only guy that spoke Arabic. I had to go. So they gave me like a pocket full of Toradol shots. And they were like, hey, if you really can't walk, pop one of these and then you can go, which is super unhealthy for you. But that's what we did. And, it's not like I'm walking out there slick. I got my ankle taped up, but I'm carrying between the least I've ever carried on the op is 81 pounds. The most I've ever carried is 139 pounds. And I was young and strong, and I was carrying a lot of rockets back then. So I was probably carrying between 120 and 140 pounds on most ops on a bad ankle. It's just what you do. And you know what? I'm not the only one. And I'm also not the guy carrying the most weight. Everyone is sucking it up like that. And it's an important mission. And you don't want to be the guy to let the team down. When there's only like 8 or 10 guys on an op, I mean, I've done ops as 2 or 3 people. You can't not bring it, you know? So I think there's a fine balance there with if you can't perform, you have to be able to say you can't perform. But for the most part, you just do it, and you have to do it.
Yeah. You're giving me tingles just thinking about it. And thank you, Jimmy, for your service and your teammate service and all that the Navy and the military community has done for us in our beautiful country, especially this week, the week of July 4th. Jimmy, you mentioned mission, and I know you've got a passion now working with your nonprofit, the nonprofit that you founded. I'd love to educate the audience, talk to us a little bit more about what you're doing and the impact and how we could be helpful as a community to you.
Yes. So one really important thing about what today is July 2nd, which is my best friend John Tumilson's birthday, who was killed on August 6, 2011 in Extortion 17, was shot down over Afghanistan. And, this 4th of July is one of his favorite holidays. When we did his memorial, we always have fireworks and stuff for him. We always raise a glass for John Tumilson. So very important day. It's his birthday today. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. Okay. Original question.
Talking about your nonprofit.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay. So within 4 months of my retirement, 4 of my friends died by their own hand. I retired in January 1st, 2023. So not too long ago. And I thought I was done seeing my friends die. And like, what is going on with this place? My friend, Brian Tucker, helped me found Beyond the Brotherhood. And it is for Navy SEALs of character to help them find their next mission in life. So I teach resilience I have a for-profit business called Mayday Executive, where I do some keynote speeches sometimes, but I also do a lot of executive adventures. But with Beyond the Brotherhood, it takes almost all my time because it really matters to me and how to help these guys get better, because it's not the turds that are killing themselves. It's the best dudes. It's like the top guys with a lot of combat. And we're starting to find that it's traumatic brain injury related. They're getting dinged up in their head a little bit. And the next thing you know, they end up killing themselves. So I was trying to figure out what can I do? You talk about a worthy task, a worthy thing for me to spend my time on. What can I do to really help get after this problem? So for Mayday Executive, one of the things I talk about a lot is resilience. And, the 3 prongs I teach are community, purpose, and goals. And so when guys get out, they lose that community. I mean, it's one thing to get out. I'm not going to diminish what the veterans and normal forces do, but in the SEAL teams, you're gone 300 days a year on the road with these guys. You are super tight with these guys. They know every in and out about everything about you. And all of a sudden you're ripped out of that, because when you're done with that, the train keeps going and the train leaves you. And all of a sudden you're not, because you can't call these guys whenever you want. They're in some other country and they might not have comms, and who knows what other plethora of reasons I could think of. So number one, you lose that community. Then you also had this purpose which was greater than yourself. We talked about, hey, what drives you to go on an op when you're hurting? You just do it. You know what I mean? You have that purpose with your guys. You know what? Making money just isn't the same kind of purpose. Like, it's not for me anyway, maybe for some people, but money is not what I'm all about. And then of course, goals. You had these goals, really big, high goals, national level security type goals you're working on. And now what are you doing? What are your goals? So I think guys lose all that. And so our share of the task is to build a community and to help guys, make that transition from the military to the civilian world. And the guys do great. They don't know how well their skills are going to transfer, because most of them have a master's degree, to be completely honest, but it's a stale master's degree, right? They don't have a network anymore. They've been completely off the grid. When I first went to write a resume, I wrote, can operate belt-fed weapons. No one needs to operate belt-fed weapons. You just have to learn, hey, instead of saying, there's different words you got to say. You say pivot and synergy instead of the capture kill or whatever else you were saying in the teams. So the guys make great transitions, but they just need a little leg up, and that's what we do. So they apply to us. We screen and select for character, and we learned how to do that when I was the XO at Buds. It's a small community. My stink gets into the room way before I do. So all you got to do, I make a couple phone calls. You have to give me one supervisor, one peer, and 3 subordinates, and I call all those guys. And if those lenses align, then you're the right kind of guy. It doesn't, they don't have to say you're nice or you're friendly, but if you're squared away and you're honest, you do what you're supposed to do, and you have a great reputation, you don't have to be nice. It's more about character. So we get the high character guys who, by the way, are the ones that end up killing themselves because they think about the things that happened and what they did during the teams. And they also tend to have a lot of traumatic brain injury because they're the guys up in the front taking the brunt of the attacks. So we take those guys, we give them the last bits of what they need. Maybe it's a network. Maybe it's we clean up their resume. Maybe we got to get some training for them. Maybe we got to provide some work for them, or because it is a nonprofit, but at the same time, I tell these guys, hey, when you make it, and you will, you turn around and send that ladder back down for the next guys. So, we were supposed to take in 5 to 7 guys. Our first year, we took in 23. I had to shut down admissions for 2 months because I had to grow the processes, people, the staff in order to handle the extra. So we had a backlog of 20 people. I am so happy to say we reopened admissions last month. And so we're starting to work through that 20-person backlog, and we're all about quality, not quantity. But there's a lot of high quality guys that are making the transition. And, I don't know how to measure the dent we'll make in the suicide. But I know we've had some guys, 2 specifically, that were really close when we found them, and both of them are doing phenomenal now. So it's a worthy task, and it takes a lot of my time.
Yeah, it's super powerful. Go one step deeper there, Jimmy. Like, where do these guys end up? Is it you find them a career, you find them a hobby? Like what is the next step? And, as our audience listens to this, hopefully some other new ideas, and opportunities sort of pop up from our community to help you in your community.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that guys are looking for is that next step in their job life. And most of them think, hey, I'm a man with a gun. And you've been a thug for America for the last 10 or 20 years, but all of a sudden, you don't understand that those skills you developed, it's not really about carrying a gun. So all these guys come out like, I'm going to go into executive protection. I'm like, man, you don't want to be on the end of the whip for some other guy anymore. That's what we've done, or, for the US for so long. I've deployed with 1 day's notice. For how long? Until I get back. I had to walk home and, tell my wife at the time, hey, I'm leaving tomorrow. Like, what? Like, yeah. How long? I'm like, I don't know. Where are you going? We're not going to talk. I'm gone for 4 months. And, if you go to executive protection, or you're going to work in that for like one of the 3-letter agencies, you're going to do the same thing. Most of these guys are getting out because they need to heal their family. I mean, at one point during the wars, we had over 100% divorce rate in the teams. Over 100%. That's insane. It's because they were just sending us out. I was gone 300 days a year for the first 14 years of my career. I didn't even know my first 2 kids. I know them now. Thank God they worked hard to maintain a relationship with me. And I, put in the work too. But yeah, it's a hard life. So when we get ready to prep these guys, we start off with, we intake them with a personality assessment. What is it, to give them an idea of what you want to do? And this guy named Jay Harris, he does Game Change. He donates his services. Now we got to pay for the base, so he's not losing money, but he donates his time. And once they get selected, they come in and they do between 3 and 5 interviews with him, and kind of help him figure out not just which niche they were going, but where in that community. Maybe you think you want executive security, but actually you align personality wise and skills wise with the finance or business development. So he kind of helps people see where they need to go. Then we build their resume that doesn't say dumb things like belt-fed weapons and personal security. Then, we introduce them to our partners, Morgan Benjamin, who advertise them. And Morgan Benjamin's awesome. They advertise them. And then if they get hired through Morgan Benjamin, they donate half of their fee back to Beyond the Brotherhood. So really cool. And a lot of our guys are broken and beat up, me included. I have 2 fake hips. I got a torn labrum in my shoulder. My nose is broken so many times that it was just like I couldn't even breathe through it. we provide nutritional supplements and blood work to figure out. The VA just doesn't do that much stuff for you. It's hard. The VA system, when you're in the SEAL teams, you show up and you get whatever you want as fast as you want. That's just the way it is when you're an active duty SEAL. And it should be that way. But as soon as you get out, you fall into Gen Pop. And you know what? The care level is just not that good. So we take their blood, figure out, hey, where are you deficient? I happen to be I had lead poisoning. I was like twice the amount of lead I was supposed to have. So they had to pull that lead out of me. I was low on K, I was low on B, and I was kind of getting lethargic. And Everspan Life is a company we work with. They donate their services completely at cost. So all we have to pay for is like the supplements but you have a doctor monitoring everything you do. It's awesome. So we get the guys cleaned up, back on step. If they need time to, spend some time with their family and get to know their family again, we give them that. So they can do a fellowship with us where we have kind of light work and we teach them some skills. And then we send them out into the interview ready to go, prepared. And if they need a couple last things, like they want real estate, they need a real estate license, we'll pay for that. They need some kind of training at QuickBooks Qual. I don't know. We figure it out. There's no one size fits none approach, but we get the guys squared away and send them out. And it's been a really popular program among the guys, obviously. And my goal would be, take the top 10% of guys every year. And, I want people to know, like, hey, these guys, when we send you a BTB guy, he's screened. He's a solid guy. He's someone that you build your whole company around. And I think one of the major tasks I've had to do is explain to people the difference between, so the way the military rank system works, like an E6 is like a mid-level leader in the military. You have an E6 retired from the regular Navy. They had a couple people they were in charge of, it's not the same in the SEAL teams. In the SEAL teams, an E6 has been running an outstation on the edge of the empire with 300 people interfacing with heads of state on a daily basis. That's not a guy that's going to work on your assembly line. It's not. It's a guy that'll run your factory. And so, that education piece has been really important for me to let people know. The guys have done great. I mean, these guys, they show up, they end up being the right-hand men for the CEO. We've had guys step right into CEO ships. We have guys turn down CEO ships. A lot of these guys are Ivy League guys. They just have stale degrees. So that's what we're doing, and that's how we do it.
It's super powerful. And does your website have a place to donate? Like, how do you get funding? How does the community support you?
So I'm super bad at getting funding right now, by the way. I've never been a nonprofit lead. I was in the SEAL teams for 22 years. But we have there's a button on there to donate. Yes, we definitely need donations. It's all open donations, how we do things. I've applied for government grants this year. So I hired a grant writer because I don't know how to do that either. And I'm just building this plane while I'm flying it, and it's gone pretty well. We hired a couple extra staff. I've got Sean Murphy and Drew Forsberg work, and then Jennifer Denton runs my books, and we're getting moving. But yeah. So if you guys want to go to the website, it's beyondthebrotherhood.org. We can definitely use donations, but we also can use skill or talent. If you're like, hey, I want to be a one-on-one mentor with one of these guys, we'll find the right fit and pair you up, because that's a very important aspect of our program, is pairing people up with mentors. And you might be like, well, I work in this obscure industry. It doesn't matter. My mentor, Steve Gattina, he's the CEO of Pray.com. Amazing dude. I talk to him every single day, text, phone calls. It's just a running conversation, and he just kind of guides me. And now he's on the board of directors for Beyond the Brotherhood, which I'm really excited about. Like, just phenomenal person. And while I'm on the topic of the board, we've also got Jocko Willink, I called him up. I'm like, hey, bro, I need a favor. He's like, oh, friend tax. What am I doing? I'm like, I need you on the board. He's like, absolutely. Done. Just like that. So got him, Greg McClellan, the CEO of Western Steel Council. Amazing dude. I mean, lots of times we show up as a SEAL, you can pull someone's man card. Not Greg. Greg can shoot. Greg can grill. Greg, any man skill you think you can do, Greg can probably do it better. And then Gio Coglatore, guy on the ground floor of Google, Meta, just amazing, humble, nice man that wants to support. And he's supported us a lot already. We asked him to be on the board, and he just about got choked up. It's like, absolutely. So I'm really excited about this new board, and we are ready to move into the future and just really expand this. So we're on a pretty exciting spot right now with Beyond the Brotherhood.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Jimmy, I'd love to jump in a little bit into your transition. How did you figure out where you just talked about your purpose and passion with Beyond the Brotherhood. Talk to us about your executive keynotes and some other work you're doing, but more importantly, when the day you retired from this a SEAL to now, like how have you gotten yourself through your own transition?
Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So the first thing I did, let's just back it up. I had a friend of mine call me who linked me up with Steve Katina, and Steve was like, "Hey, I heard you teach in the SEAL teams," which I teach combat leadership to this day. They still contract me to teach. I was like, "I do." He's like, "Would you mind talking to my company?" I'm like, I don't really do that. But the guy that asked me to do it, his friend was one of my main jiu-jitsu training partners named Mark Hawes. I'm like, "Okay," Mark said, "Do it. I'll come do it." So I went, I just talked to him about, I think I talked to him about leading change in an organization, and it went really well. And afterwards they're like, "Hey, we need to pay you." I'm like, "No, you can't pay me. I'm active duty. You can't pay me." I was like, "But you know what would be good? I need a mentor. If you would just be my mentor." And that, talk about the best investment I've ever made in my entire life. So those guys, he brought me under his wing, and the conversation started back then in 2015. And then Brian Tucker came along in 2017, and I've known him for a few years, and I've been helping him. He's building this amazing golf course called Punta Brava down in Mexico. And when he's bringing investors in, they need someone to like show them around. So if they would need to go big wave surfing, and I'll take the investors out big wave surfing and make sure that they survive. Or if they want to go just feel comfortable moving around Mexico, I would do that. So I wasn't working. I was just doing it to help him because I like Mexico anyway. And Brian came up with the idea. It's like, "Hey, we should do a nonprofit, and I'll help you." And so he did. He established a 501c3 for me. And then I started doing it. And the next thing you know, I just got really passionate about it. I just couldn't believe there's a lot of benevolent organizations out there that raise money on the Navy SEAL name, and then they just give it to everybody else. And which is fine. But the men that actually earned that fearsome reputation and they're beat up, that's who I want to focus on. And oh, by the way, the best ones, the guys that really did it. Because there's also, like any community, there's guys that didn't do that much, or guys that, didn't do well, were not well thought of. I try to take the best and the brightest, and only the best and the brightest. It's an elitist mindset, but it's the SEAL teams, right? You should be elite.
Absolutely. What has been one of your biggest discoveries of running an organization outside of sort of a military setup?
I actually love it because there's not so many rules on rules, and it's actually a much more of a meritocracy. In the military, you can be the best guy. I mean, you can show up, be the best guy. It doesn't matter. You got to do your 2 years. You got to jump through your wickets. You have to it is like socialism. Like, you're just straight, I'll get, even if I'm the best dude, I'll get paid just as bad, just the same as the worst guy, just as bad as the worst guy. That's probably more accurate. But in the civilian world, you get paid what you're worth. So you create value, you get paid that value. Whereas in the military, you can work as hard as you want or as little as you want, and you get paid the same. So in the teams, the good thing about the teams is that your reputation is currency in the teams. And so guys work super hard, but I can see how, that definitely affects the quality of the workforce that we're getting. And now that we've lost the good retirement, like the pension, that's gone in the military now. It's like a 401k. I think they're going to have some serious retention problems, especially with their top talent. Because the only reason I stuck around, honestly, was after I was beyond my tactical years, because my body was too destroyed after those 14 years of deployments. I was just basically doing surgeries and kind of staff work. I did one more deployment after that, but I wouldn't stick around for staff work if I wasn't going to have a pension, if I could take my 401k with me. So the military is in trouble in that aspect.
Certainly. Can we talk about your executive adventures? You dropped that breadcrumb for me as well. I'd love to know some of the crazy things that you've done, and
Dude, it is so
give me
fun.
some inspiration.
Yeah, it is so fun. I started off, I just kind of threw it out there, and man, I'm booked solid through next year already, and I'm not cheap. But people are starting to get real creative. I had a YPO chapter call me and be like, "Hey, can you kidnap us?" I'm like, "How many?" Like 27. I'm like, "Yep." Like in the morning, I taught them how to pick locks. I taught them how to pick handcuffs. I taught them how to like get out of tape. And then on their lunch break, I showed up with, we had hoods on and AK-47s with blanks, and we did it this Hollywood set, and we threw them in cages, and we had them like pick their way out. So I've taught small unit tactics at airsoft ranges. I've taken people shooting at helicopters. I've taken people, we got one in the works right now where we're going to like take a helicopter out, jump out, shoot a giant tuna with a spear gun, and then like tail rope it, hook it up. I'm like, whatever, guys. Like, it's just so fun. Like, it started off with like skydiving and shooting and stuff, and now people are just getting off the rails. So I only said no one time, and it was actually this group that wanted to do drown proofing, like tie up a bunch of these people, hands and feet in the water and throw them in the water. I'm like, we'll do underwater knot tying. It's a little bit, and that was plenty. But for the most part, I don't say no. But I've never had anybody hurt. What's cool about it for me is like my whole adrenaline thing doesn't spike like it used to. Like you jumping out of a plane your first time, you're like, you got the juice. I don't get any juice from that anymore. But I can feel the juice you got when you're like, I can see it on your face. I'm like, oh, this guy's overcoming some serious like barriers and obstacles in his head right now. And I get to be part of that, and I get to video it. And on the backside, I get to be part of that high five, like that just amazing feeling of accomplishment. And man, I tell you what, it is so fun getting to do that week in, week out with such good people. I work a lot with EO. I work a lot with YPO. I work a lot with some really good companies, and I don't have much advertising or marketing. I don't need it. I got tons of repeat offenders as far as it goes with Mayday. So I'm having a blast doing it. It pays all the bills, and that way I can take a very minimal salary at BTB. I have to take a salary as a CEO. So I take 60 grand a year at BTB. The board had approved 150 for me. I just never took it. I just don't feel the need to take donor funds. I want that to go to the boys, but I have to have something as a CEO if I take 60, but everything else I make from Mayday Executive.
That's fantastic. It reminds me of a story other than EO retreat, probably 6 years ago with my family. We went through this exercise, and I can't remember the company that put it on, but we were at Rehoboth Beach, and they had, 4 inflatable military style rafts that were deflated, and it had, your life jacket, and they put us through, some sort of exercise where you had to put your life jacket on perfectly, and then you get in the raft and you're pushing into the wave, and you had to all get on the boat at the same time. And if you didn't, you'd capsize the boat, and on and on and on. And one of the teams, my oldest daughter was the captain. And I don't know, she was probably 10, maybe. And her boat got out to the buoy and back and won the race. But anyway, fast forward to the presentation, these guys make this huge deal about her performance and her leadership, on and on. And I'm like crying my eyes out listening to them talk about my 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And I tell you today, her leadership skills is because of that retreat and that event, and how she sort of stood up in this moment of sort of move it or lose it, military, lead a team that you don't know. And it's all, CEOs, just little 10-year-olds leading this group of anyways, it's super powerful.
Yeah.
And I could see how you could just hear it in my voice getting all excited about what you're doing in that space and creating leadership for these people that struggle with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is fun. I think that there's something about that confidence that you build with people, that I have a friend named Peter, amazing dude, banker. When I met him, he was 260 pounds. He's like 5'10". Now he's like 170. He can do pull-ups. He's spearing fish, jumping out of planes with me. And he's just a friend. He's not a client. We don't I don't charge him for anything. He just kind of came over to this space where I'm in now. And I think a lot of people, they want to do these things. They just don't have the background how to do it safely. And so, I never make it about me. It's totally about them. I'm just a spirit animal. I'm just going to walk you through and make sure that everything is safe. And, I'm not going to say that we're not doing dangerous stuff, because it is dangerous. Jumping out of planes is dangerous. Being in the monster soup of the ocean is dangerous. But, we got steps to mitigate it. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. And, we had a guy, we took spearfishing. I tell you, it was a bachelor party. I'm like, yeah, I'll take y'all spearfishing. So I remember we roll up on, there's a floating patty of kelp. That's what aggregates the fish. So we're probably 30, 40 miles offshore. and the guys are throwing rod and reel at the same time as we jock up to get in the water. And they hook up to a mako shark, and they pull that mako shark right up to the edge. It's perfect because as soon as we got off, which is perfect, everyone got to see the shark, but you don't have to mess with the scary teeth and trying to get that line off. And I'm like, all right. So I get in the water. I'm like, let's go check the patty. And the guy looks at me and he's like, his name was Milan. He goes, hey, there's a shark in there. I'm like, you saw it. It ain't that big. Get in the water. So the guy gets in the water. We go check it. No fish. I'm like, this is a disaster. We hadn't found fish all day. So we started coming back. And the guy gets out and he's like, I just got in the water with a known shark. I'm like, bro, I didn't think about that. You did. And it was a huge deal to him, And I just learned something that day. Like, wow, this is a big deal for a lot of people that I kind of took things for granted, but now I try not to do that. I try to see things through their lens. And then to this day, I got the guy's number on my phone. He was still fired up about it. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. Jimmy, audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way to reach out?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, which is easy. So so I don't know if you'll friend me or connect with me. So please do that because I've never had social media until this year. So I'm just kind of growing my social media presence. So definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. That's the easiest. And I'm relatively responsive on that. And then if not, Beyond the Brotherhood, you want to get involved. If you've got some kind of skill, you want to be involved, please do it. Such a worthwhile cause. You'll meet amazing people, not just our fellows, but also like the rest of our network. I send out a quarterly newsletter and it keeps you plugged in with what's going on. So beyondthebrotherhood.org, that website, if you hit donate I get an email. If you hit, contact us, I get an email. And then of course, Mayday Executive Services. It's a website. I don't go on it much. My sister runs it, to be completely honest, but you can find me on there. And if you guys are interested in doing some kind of corporate event or a private event, man, hit me up as early as possible because like I say, I'm booked pretty solid through May of next year already. But if you got a really cool idea, we'll make it work. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, you must be doing something right. Any parting wisdom words for our audience?
No, thank you so much for having me. And I know who your audience is made up of. It's the YPO and EO. And what I really like about this group is, you're not fitting in, you're not a cog in the machine. These are people who are entrepreneurs, who are driving, creating essentially American opportunity for everybody else. I really feel like I fit in with, especially the EO group. I'm an entrepreneur, and there's just something about making your own way. You're hunting, not gathering. And I just really respect and appreciate this audience and all the work I've got to do with YPO and EO already. And I just thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Jimmy, it's an absolute pleasure. So audience members, you got value out of the show. Please like our show. Please subscribe to our podcast. Follow Jimmy, find him on the internet, find him on social media, support Beyond the Brotherhood. It's an amazing organization. And if you got the courage, call him up and go jump out of a helicopter and spearfish a shark or something.
If you don't have the courage, call me.
Oh yeah. Even more importantly, Jimmy, it was great having you on the show, brother. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it, Greg.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.